Hi, everybody. It's Mama Kay coming at you again from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And now, today, I am so excited to talk to this person that we figured out that I have known for 24 years. It just blows my mind. And they are nowhere near Winnipeg right now, and they haven't been near Winnipeg in their teaching career for a very long time. And that breaks my heart because I know how phenomenal they are and what a great asset it would be to the Manitoba band community to have her back. But alas, she enjoys not having snow in the wintertime where she is. So without further ado, special guest, who are you?
Hi, my name is Sophia Sontag, and I am originally from Winnipeg, as Joanne said, but I have been living in Bermuda for 8 years, and I've been teaching for 9. I just started my 9th year teaching at a school called Summersfield Academy. I moved here in 2011 and went to school at the University of Manitoba, where I studied flute.
That is, I'm so jealous. I think it's amazing that you've already been there that many years.
It's crazy. It's flown by.
So we're going to go way, way back because you didn't just get there. You had this huge, long journey from baby Sophia to landing up in a beautiful tropical paradise. Can you take us way back to when you started getting into music? How did that go for you? Tell us your story.
Starting getting into music, like when I started doing private lessons and all that.
Or anything before that, like what was elementary school music like for you? Sort of what was your musical path?
Okay, so I grew up in just outside of Winnipeg, but went to school in Transcona through the French immersion programs of École Centrale and then École Regent Park, and finally at Collège Père Trudeau. And when I was in elementary school, my musical exposure was mainly to a lot of recorder, which was wonderful. Love that. And I also started private music lessons on flute when I was in elementary school. So that was a nice release that way. And then moving on to middle school, because I'd already been playing flute for a while, I just didn't think that band would be a challenge at the time. So I started playing guitar, which was great. I wish I'd kept up with that because that would have been a great skill to have now. And then moved on to high school band and choir as well when I was in high school, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm trying to think otherwise.
Who were your teachers, Sophia?
Who were my teachers? Well, my private flute teacher was Joanne, Mama Kay. She's known now. In elementary, my music teacher was Madame Cobb. Middle school, I had a few different guitar teachers. Oh my goodness, now my brain's mush. I can't remember her name. I feel awful. Madame Johnson was my first guitar teacher, and then we had a few others. And then in high school, we had Mr. Rob Monson and followed up with Mr. Brady Gill my last year. And Miss Tina Klein, which is really funny because she has a connection with the person that got me here to Bermuda.
Really?
Yeah. So when I got the job in Bermuda, I had just finished graduating from university and I had zero plans to start teaching right away. Unlike all the other people in my cohort, they were looking for jobs madly and preparing for interviews. And I was just very laissez-faire about it and figured I'm going to go backpacking in South America for 3 months and not worry about teaching. And instead, what ended up happening was the day of our convocation, we got an email from Joan Linklater, who was the associate dean at the university at the time. And she was wonderful at always sending us emails of jobs that were coming up, different opportunities. And it was from a woman that I'll refer to as Bermuda Pam, because that was the nickname I gave her at the time. She is also from Winnipeg, and so is her husband. They moved to Bermuda, gosh, now it would probably be 20 years ago.
She's also a flute player, is she not?
She is, yes, and she studied at the University of Manitoba with Jan Kochman. So all 3 of us have had lessons with Jan Kochman as well. And so when she sent out the email because she was leaving her job for personal reasons, and Bermuda, because it is another country, expatriates like myself can only interview even for a job, can only attain a job and a work permit if a Bermudian, specifically, not just local, Bermudian, does not apply and is, or a Bermudian that applies maybe isn't qualified for the position. So in her case, there were no Bermudians that had been interested in the position, so she was allowed to advertise overseas. So she sent the email to her alma mater. And I saw it and just thought, what the heck? It was actually a friend of mine. I read it out to her and said, this seems a little silly. And she said, well, why don't you just ask about it? So getting in touch with Pam, she sold me on things like, it wasn't necessarily the warm weather that sold it for me, because I've always loved winter. I'm one of those weirdos that loves winter, but she said that she runs a lot, which was something that I was very interested in. She also said that she plays a lot of volleyball, and they have beach volleyball leagues down here, and I've always been very passionate about volleyball. The biggest thing though is, as I said, I wanted to travel. And she had said that her and her husband had many opportunities living here to travel, and that flights to New York were very cheap. They go there often, sometimes just for a weekend, which I have now been doing. not currently, but I have, and they'd gone all over the world. And so that was something that really interested me. So that's how I got my job here, was through her.
So why did you even go into music?
I was not going to originally go into music. I originally, when I was in grade 11, I remember thinking that I was going to be either an engineer or a dentist. Those were the two things that I was quite passionate about becoming. But under the direction of my private flute teacher, Jillian, you had said to me, why don't you just try auditioning? Like, it's a cool challenge. And I think she noticed that I was always up for a good challenge. She said, why not? I mean, it's just keeping your options open. And it wasn't really something in the forefront of my mind for a long time at all that I could have been a band teacher, not even close. But I think it was being exposed to such really cool, amazing, inspirational band teachers in my high school years that made me think twice about that and go, wait a minute, those people are really cool and their jobs seem really cool. Let's see what this is like.
And then look at you now.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Thanks. You're so sweet.
Yeah, Sophia was an 8-year-old when I first met her, and was always you've always been one of the hardest working people I've ever known, even as a youngster.
Aw, that's very kind of you.
So now, what sort of advice do you have for anybody that might be thinking about maybe going into music as a career? Because I mean, for you, you said that it wasn't necessarily at the forefront.
I guess for anybody considering it, it's just to keep all your options open, musically and also other interests. Because even though I teach music and that's what my job is, that's what my career is, it's not what I do 24/7. So I mentioned earlier that I'm very passionate about running and playing volleyball and very sporty. And those two things here have led me to incredible opportunities. I always knew that I wanted to run a marathon. And next thing I knew, within 2 years of moving here, I was running the New York City Marathon, which is just crazy. You never would have thought. I've also competed for Bermuda and represented Bermuda for volleyball. Now, I know that sounds bananas, because if you're thinking about it from Canadian standards and being on Team Canada, that's a huge task. Here, obviously, not to downplay it, but I mean, our population is quite small, so the level of play is not as high, but it still has led me to compete in international competitions, which is nuts. So keep all those doors open, but also musically, because I do see areas, and I don't know if you feel the same way, Joanne, but I don't have any regrets necessarily. I do wish that there were some skill sets that I had. I wish that I was a bit better of a piano player and a guitar player, as I mentioned earlier, or that I had more exposure to jazz and I'd taken those opportunities, because now I see that there are some holes and things that I can still do professional development on, but that I wish I'd kept those opportunities open.
I think when you and I went through junior high and high school, flute players really were not encouraged to play in jazz band. It was still a very traditional view of what jazz could be, right? So those doors weren't opening for us.
Yeah, that's fair. And certainly, I mean, maybe that would have changed had I played in band when I was in junior high. So that might have been where that kind of slipped for me. But definitely it would have meant I would have had to play multiple instruments, which I can't believe it. But this year I finally played in 2 musicals. I'd never played in a pit band before. And one of them I got to play, it was for Matilda. I got to play flute, piccolo, and recorder, which was
great musical, by the way.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was phenomenal. And then we just recently in January, I played in The Little Mermaid, which was very cool. But I also had to play a little bit of clarinet for it, which was interesting. I didn't play all the clarinet parts, but I played as much as I possibly could. And that was wild. Yeah.
Good for
So,
you.
and our school was also just in the midst before all the virus stuff started shutting everything down. We were actually, this week, Thursday, it was meant to be our opening night of Beauty and the Beast. We were putting on our very first musical, so.
I know that at our school, they were working on doing Aladdin this year, and the kids were just heartbroken that they're not doing it now. Although I do believe that there's a possibility of it being pushed into the fall.
Yeah, we're open to those ideas because we know that it's going to break the kids' hearts to not perform it at all. And they have put in so much work and so much effort. It's incredible, but it's tough logistically to try and get that all sorted, to try and find another time to perform. So we'll see. It's up in the air at the moment.
Before I get to the last question, I wanted to ask you this before and I forgot. What is, you didn't have the junior high band experience, but you had the high school band experience. What would you say are some of the biggest differences between being involved in band where you are compared to where you came from?
The biggest difference in terms of teaching band here, and I think it's been the biggest challenge for sure, is not having the support of, say, St. John's Music or Long and McQuaid. Not to throw out specific names, but we don't have a rental program here. We don't have a store that I can go to for sheet music. So oftentimes when I come back to Winnipeg, in fact, I came back last February to visit for a week, and I brought a suitcase entirely dedicated to supplies for class. And it had, I think, 3 clarinets in it, a flute, and 2 violins was coming back. So it's that is something that I miss a lot. And I had actually just spoken to one of my colleagues about how I would love to get for their PD on instrument repair, because I think that would be phenomenal. Because right now, if a head joint gets dented, I have to wait until someone comes down, or if I take it away to get repaired. So that's a huge challenge, for sure.
Just the fact that you can, here in Winnipeg or in North America and any big center, right? You can just take your instrument down a 10-minute drive or whatever and get it fixed. Yeah. It's done. Or you're out of reeds. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Make a phone call and it's there.
Yeah, we have some things that I can buy here that it's not so bad. I can purchase reeds, I can purchase valve oil. There's a music store that carries some reasonable brands locally. It's just funny because I'll have an issue. For instance, I had an issue last year with a clarinet, and I reached out to one of my clarinet friends in Winnipeg, and they said to me, "I'm sorry, I don't really know, because I would just probably take it to the repair shop." So yeah, that's been a major challenge for sure.
If people were wanting to get more information on getting to teach in Bermuda, is there a website that they should visit? Like, even if they're not looking to teach music there, but what's the best way? I know you knew somebody, but is there a site that people can go to?
Probably the best bet. A lot of the local private schools here will post on a website called TES, and I feel awful for forgetting exactly what that stands for at the moment. But the TES is a website out of the UK, and because Bermuda a lot of our private schools are international schools, that's a popular place for job postings. They could also just check the local newspaper here. It's called the Royal Gazette. So if they look up the Royal Gazette Bermuda, they will see when job postings come up. They typically come up around January, unless it's for a local school. I'm not sure the public schools when exactly they post. I want to estimate usually about the same time as in Winnipeg, but that's probably their best bet.
And do you have any last little bits of worldly advice for any adults or students who might be watching this right now?
I would say be as flexible as possible and willing to go with the flow. Over the last 8 years of living here, I have taken in so many opportunities that I don't think I would have happened had I not been flexible and just had hope that things would just work out. For example, I actually was meant to leave Bermuda in the summer 2019. And then this job appeared, and it was a job that I'd actually interviewed for 5 years ago and was not successful. But now I have it, and it's an incredible experience. That being said, also a few years before that, I had gotten a job at a private school here that uses Alberta curriculum. So I took on the challenge of teaching elementary, and I'd never taught elementary in my life. And I spent, after my first year of teaching that, I came back to Winnipeg and took my level 1 ORF at the University of Manitoba because I knew I was so out of my element, and it was very helpful. So just be flexible to absolutely anything, any opportunity that comes your way, and try not to have as much of a plan. And that's really tough for me. I am a huge planner, but that's been a big learning curve and very much worthwhile.
Excellent advice, no matter how old you are, I think. I think we can all learn how to be a little bit more flexible. And my goodness, is time being away from everything and having to learn new skills. It's humbling right now, and it's teaching me to be patient, and it's teaching me to try to be a little more flexible as I stumble through all of this. So Sophia, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today. I wish I got to see you more. I miss seeing you so much, whether it's just hanging out or playing flute duets with you. I feel so lucky that our paths crossed so many years ago.
Me too. And thank you so much for asking me to do this. It's been lovely to chat with you. I miss you so much.
Oh, mwah, mwah, mwah. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.